Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange and the host who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all manner of strange and unusual literature that I've been forced to read by order of royal decree. So, as I mentioned in a previous video, I have been determined to make my way through a series that I did not read when I was a teenager, but that I thought I might enjoy it, like teenage Mr. Nothing might enjoy it, because that was the kind of thing that he read. And so that series is about an unwilling princess. And that book is, the book that I'll be talking about today is Princess in the Spotlight by Meg Cabot. It is the second book in the Princess Diaries series. I talked about Meg Cabot and in the other video I did on the Princess Diaries, which I thought was an okay book. It had a few missteps here and there, but I had a good time reading it throughout. One thing that I didn't mention in the other video, though, is that Meg Cabot was like 33 years old when she started writing this series. It's always a bit iffy when a middle-aged sort of person, someone in their 30s, like when they start writing about teenagers, it just comes off weird, because like there's nothing wrong with it, but they're so far removed, like years removed from being a teenager, that it's possible they might have forgotten like what it was like being a teenager. And I definitely think that Meg Cabot falls into that category, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But first I'll talk about the book and then do a little bit of analysis afterwards. Princess in the Spotlight is about Mia Thermopolis. She is the heir to the throne of Genovia. And it's been about a week or so since the events of the last book, which I was surprised, because there's 10 books in the series, and like I thought she had to get throughout all of high school, and it turns out she's taking this slow by slow, and I'm thinking Meg Cabot's got to do a time jump at some point if she's going to be going this slow. But anyways, so yeah, we're in the middle of October. It's been 1 month since Mia's been proclaimed the future head of Genovia, and she's still a bit iffy about it. She doesn't know how it's going to go. She's made up with her friends, and she's looking forward to her freshman year of high school. What's remaining of it. She's immediately made like she's upset at the beginning of the book, because she finds out that her mom is pregnant with her algebra teacher, Mr. Gianni, their child, which is like super embarrassing to Mia, because she didn't want anyone to know about the relationship, and now everyone's going to find out about it. Her mom makes Mia not tell her father about it, because that would put like a wedge in their relationship. So Mia agrees to remain quiet about it. At the same time, Mia's grandmother, Grandmère, who is a terrible person and needs some comeuppance that's never coming. She says that Mia has to do a head of state appearance later on in December, in order for as a way to get to know who the future royalty of Genovia will be. And in order to prepare for this, she's also set up like a random like primetime interview for people to get to know who Mia is, and it'll give Mia a chance to practice her interview and speech making skills. However, Mia gets sick before the interview, but her grandmother makes her do the interview anyways, and she ends up revealing, among other things, that her mom is pregnant with her algebra teacher's baby. So, which is hilarious because her father and grandmother do not take well to that news at all. And in fact, her grandmother decides that there needs to be a royal wedding because Mia's mom is a part of the family, regardless of the separation between Mia and or Mia's mom and Mia's dad. So, the rest of the story is pretty much taking place in the aftermath of the interview with the school, sort of wondering why Mia doesn't feel like in place. Because she said in the interview that the school is kind of separated into cliques, which is, very cliched writing right there. But the principal's like, oh, why do you say that? And Mia's like, it's true, and the principal doesn't believe it. So no one's listening to Mia once again. And meanwhile, while her grandmother's planning this wedding, Mia's trying to stop her because Mia's mom doesn't want a large wedding. But of course, her grandmother doesn't listen to Mia, as evidenced by what happened in the last book. So the wedding is planned for Halloween, and the time comes and goes, and it turns out that Mia's mom and Mr. Gianni fled to Cancun to get married, which put a wrench in the grandmother's plan. So at least somebody is standing up to grandmother, even though it isn't Mia for some stupid reason. Anyways, Mia ends up going to a party. They go to see a screening of Rocky Horror Picture Show, and throughout the course of this book, Mia has been given messages from a crush, someone who has a crush on her, throughout the book, and Mia's kind of hoping that it's Michael, Lily's brother. But at the end of the book, it's revealed to be her biology lab partner, Kenny, who is kind of a dweeb and Mia doesn't like. And so he asks her out at the end of the book, and she's like, well, I like Michael, but Michael didn't really take his opportunity when he had the chance. So I guess I'll go out with Kenny, which is really dumb. Like, just a weird way to end the book. And so Mia's just kind of thinking about, like, at the end of the book now, like, she's in a relationship, I guess, but things aren't really going her way, but they could be worse. So she's I guess she's thinking on a high note, I guess, ending it on a high note. And that's pretty much the end of the story. Not a lot happened there. So in terms of talking about it, I would say that Meg Cabot doubles down on what makes this series good and what makes this series bad here. For example, like the idea, the events taking place are very interesting. Like, Mia is going through the process of becoming a princess, so she has to give an interview, and she's also coming into conflict with her friends who aren't going through a similar situation. There's Tina Hakim Baba, who's a very interesting character. Who knows how much longer she'll remain in the story, because she is Saudi Arabian, British Saudi Arabian, and this story came out in 2001, before the events of 9/11, and the next one comes out in 2002, after. So who knows if Tina's going to be in the next book, because although like, not everyone from the Middle East is responsible for the 9/11 terrorist attacks, I don't think that Meg Cabot would have the nuance to be able to recognize that, especially when so many people were kind of panicking in 2001. So, especially also because the story takes place in Manhattan, of all places. So, what are they going to address 9/11 in the next book? That's something else. Like, I like Tina Hakim Baba. Like, she's a very interesting character, and like, she can relate to Mia on some level because they both are in a position that they kind of don't want to be, and they're embarrassed by, like, their bodyguard and how the school treats them differently. And I like that parallel, and it's still there in this story. There's also the various friendships that he has along with Tina. There's that with Lily, and there's a part in the book where like Lily films Mia at one of their slumber parties, and she shows it on her public access show, Lily Moskovitz, Lily Explains It All, or something like that. Lily tells it like it is. Like, she shows that on her show, and it's a very real and very sincere moment where, like, you see the friendship between Lily and Mia, and how, like, Lily wants what's best for Mia. But also at the same time how she's kind of exploiting her princess to make her own show popular. So, like, you get that interesting moment there, and it's there, and, like, that's what makes this story good, is there's that. However, there's also that doubling down on, like, all the things that make this story bad. For example, one of the big problems is that Mia is very passive. She doesn't take a lot of action in the story, and that happened in the previous story too. She's very non-confrontational, which is bad because she, like, all this stuff keeps happening to her, and this is a pivotal moment in her life because she's going to become princess of a small country very soon, and she doesn't want to address anything that comes her way. Like, she's unhappy, she's complaining nonstop, but she doesn't do anything about it. She never confronts her grandmother about the fact that her grandmother is pretty much manipulating everybody in her life in a very negative way. She doesn't confront Michael at all. Like, she has a crush on Michael, and she knows Michael likes her, but they never address it. And, like, maybe she's just waiting for, like, Michael to make the first move. But if Meg Cabot is at all serious about the feminism themes that she places in here, what's wrong with Mia asking him out? It's like she talks about it throughout the entire book, but she never takes a step. And then, like, there's so many other things that happen in his story, and, like, Mia isn't an active character in her own story. She's very passive, which is what you get in a lot of young adult fiction. Passive characters who are more, like, stuff happens to them rather than them engaging the plot. So that's kind of bad in this case. It especially 2 stories in a row where things just seem to happen to Mia and she never takes action. And coupled with that, she also complains a lot. She's constantly talking about, like, how she doesn't have a boyfriend, and she views herself as flat-chested and kind of hideous. And it's like she complains about this nonstop. The thing about her boobs, where she complains about not having any boobs, is that she does this, like, sometimes in the span of 3 pages, 2 pages, like, twice on the same page. And I have to wonder, like, what's the deal with Meg Cabot? Is she trying to get, like, some trauma out of her head that, like, this is what she was dealing with as a child? Or has she genuinely forgotten what it's like to be a 14-year-old girl? Because I don't think teenage girls complain about this enough. I didn't talk with teenage girls, like, back then about these issues that Mia seems to be talking about. But they can't, like, this can't be what women, like, what teenage girls think about. It seems like a caricature at times, and because she complains so much, it makes her even more unlikable. Like, I want to like this character, I want to like this story, but because she complains so much and because she does nothing to advance her own situation, how am I supposed to like this? Like, how am I supposed to be invested in this story? And then on top of that, nothing seems to get resolved in this story. One of the issues that comes up is Mia having to give a sort of presentation at a state dinner, so that the people of Genovia can meet Mia Thermopolis. But she doesn't really do anything in that direction in this book. She doesn't do anything to further that, to enhance her ability to speak in public, which I think is really weird. It really seems like Meg Cabot introduced this idea only to sell you on the future book. Like, because I'm pretty sure this gets resolved in the next book. But that shouldn't be how you write things. You shouldn't write something in a story and then talk about it again like a book later, 2 books later. You're not selling a book anymore, you're selling a franchise. And maybe that's just the after effects of, like, the Harry Potter franchise hitting it big, and so now everybody at the time has to have a Harry Potter franchise, and has to, sell you multiple books rather than just one. But if you can't effectively resolve a plot or tell a coherent story in one book, you're not a good author, in my opinion. You're a franchise person. You're pretty much creating something so you could sell it to Disney, which is what Meg Cabot did. And then Disney properly realized that this entire franchise sucks, and they decided not to make anything out after the second movie. Anyway, that was Princess in the Spotlight. I thought it was a fine book. It had a lot of decent moments and enough to keep me hooked, but there were still a lot of problems that if you're reading this entire series, become glaring as time goes on. I did buy the third book in bulk with this, Princess in Love, which probably describes her unhappy relationship with this Kenny fellow that she's going out with. I did buy it, so I'm gonna read it, and I'll probably talk about it, probably rant about it in another future video. I do think that if that book isn't good, I might drop the series as a whole. I really don't want to waste my time on a series that doesn't seem to be getting better, on an author who doesn't seem to have any real talent for writing, which is a harsh thing to say. But if this is what Meg Cabot has to offer, pass. So yeah, I'll read the next book, and if it doesn't get better, I'll have to think about whether I continue with this or just move on to something else. But yeah, so it was pretty good. I wouldn't recommend you seek this book out or even this series out at this point unless the series gets better in some way. But that's pretty much all I have to say there. If you want to leave a comment about my rant, or if you read this book and you want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a comment below. Well, I'll gladly have a conversation about this series with you. In the meantime, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's always good to get the message out and to get more people into this book club, this giant old book club. Until then, I wish you a pleasant day in your weird travels. Farewell.